talked about pastel analysis. So we covered the political system, economic system, legal system, and this chapter talks about cultural differences around the world, chapter 4. Now this picture is actually a picture of Dubai. United Arab Emirates is the picture of United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates was established in 1971. One of the top 10 countries with largest oil reserve in the world. It's an open market, which includes 7 emirates. Dubai rated as one of the best places to live in the Middle East. Theme of World Expo 2020 connecting minds, creating the future. Expo will last 6 months, where countries are expected to show what they can do, nation branding. Now, let me show you a picture. Dubai is right now famous for the largest, I want to make it, the largest amusement park, the largest indoor mall, the largest indoor ski resorts, the largest whatever. They want to, that's how, they said they even want to do it, the largest casino resorts. So that's what they're trying to do. Again, think about this. It was only established 1971. It's only like 4 decades old. Let me show you a picture of Dubai now and then, which actually shows you this picture, for example. You see Dubai in 1991 and 2017. For example, this one here. Oh, it's not a good picture, but this is the same street, same road, right? So you see how, and it's only 1991. Look how it has changed tremendously, right? Now, a couple of things about Dubai that is very interesting. Dubai actually is one of the only countries that has third national workers, third national employees, basically. You either have, if you expand your company as an American company, you expand your company to, let's say, France, any other country, you either hire their own population workforce, which will be home nation, right? Or you take yours, it will be host nation, or you take yours, which will be expatriates, right? Which is employees who work for your company in another country. Now, Dubai actually has third national employees, because Dubai citizens actually, I don't think they like to work for you. So, and it's too expensive for you to take your American expatriates to Dubai. So what happens is that there is a huge surge of immigrant workers to Dubai from Southeast Asian countries. A lot of Filipinos, a lot of other Arab countries, as well as Indians, Bangladeshi, Indian, Sri Lanka. So when you go there, there are a lot of third nationals that would work for you. When you go to their airlines, usually are the first atmosphere for you to get to know the other country. If you're traveling to Italy, you take Air Italy, you will see Alitalia, probably you will see like, oh, when you enter, they speak different language, like you speak Italian, how they look and how they dress, and something how their food or something from their own tradition. Dubai actually, their airlines, their flight attendants, they are from different countries. So they have their own tags, what country I'm from and what language I speak. Because they're all actually immigrant workers in that country. It's very difficult to get the citizenship in Dubai, but it's a melting pot. A lot of different cultures that you will see. And that's probably one of the reasons, and they're trying to be very open market, so that's how you will see a lot of different cultures in that country. Now, as an expatriate, when you go to another country to work, you have to be very open-minded, cross-culturally educated. You have to have literacy in cross-cultural. There are 3 types of management views. One is, the first type is actually ethnocentrism, ethnocentric view, which is you're very close-minded, like you're suffering from myopia basically, you don't see anywhere else other than in front of your nose here. Everything, your reference point is your own culture. Everything that is psychologically distant from your culture, that's bad, negative, everything that is close to your culture, that means it's good. Those type of managers, those type of management views are not good as an expatriate. They better work in domestic market. Now, the second type is polycentric. Polycentric view, basically, they like a group of countries. They pick a group of countries that is closer psychologically to their own culture. They don't like being culture shocked and all that. They don't feel comfortable. They start working with them. For example, a North American works with West European countries. Something that if they feel like it's closer to my culture, right? And geocentric views are the ones that are very open-minded. They know other cultures. They're open to learn and basically blend into the culture, assimilate to the culture. Those types are the best for expatriate positions. Now, expatriates cost a lot to employers. If expatriates do not complete their assignments, for example, if their assignment is 5 years, if they don't complete their 5 years assignments, it's going to cost the company a lot, depending on the level of their position. It can cost something between $50,000 to $500,000. Just recently, I read actually can cost up to $1 million. Why? Because they are being trained for last 1 or 2 years, not only them, but their family, their children, wife, spouse, husband. They take him actually a couple times, 1 or 2 times to another country to get to know that country, to see the feeling, like if they like it or not. They teach him, they hire them actually professionals, experts to basically teach him culture of the country, language of the country, to get to basically, to get them familiarized with the country. Now, if they don't finish the assignment and come back, the position not only will be empty, but also they have to do all the training for another person. So it's going to cost them a lot of money. That's why they want to make sure that they take geocentric views, management views to other countries to reduce the chances of failure. So it is very important. Now, what the companies are doing actually, we do have a chapter that talks only about expatriates. It's towards the end of the book. But I was in China. When I was in China, I went to Andrew Telecommunication. I remember back, it was about 13 years ago. Andrew Telecommunication, Andrew was actually a Verizon employee. So he goes, in 2000, he was a Verizon employee. He goes to China as an expatriate. And then he likes it, he stays there, and he becomes the supplier. He stays there even after his term. And he becomes a supplier to Verizon Wireless. He used to build like big towers, cell towers. Now, the reason was he actually told us that the reason is because why they chose me, because my wife actually was Chinese. So they knew the chances of failure is a lot less coming back. And he was like, it was actually true. So we stayed there, we liked it, and even though the term was completed, I didn't go back. So I decided to become their suppliers, and they stayed there for good. So companies want to make sure to reduce the failure. That's why they hire mostly people who are familiar with that culture. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this myself, but we have to do this. Okay, so arriving late is, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Many of you guys know that arriving late is very common in other cultures. Okay, what does culture embrace? Let's see what does culture embrace. Culture basically embraces norms, folks' ways, ethics and behaviors, and all of these factors as well, such as religion, political philosophy, economic philosophy, education, language, social structure. When I say norms and behaviors and ethics and all that, folks' way, that means basically, for example, a very good example of folks' way. In other countries, many other countries, when you see an elderly walking into, entering into public transportation, or a pregnant woman, or someone that you feel it's difficult for them to stand up, you probably offer your seat to them, right? Which is very nice. If you don't offer, you are considered a rude person as a young person. Now, here I have noticed exactly opposite. I have noticed people who offer, the other person is offended. Like, why do you think I'm old that you need to give me your seat? So it's exactly opposite here. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes that people get actually offended. So these are basically, folks, that there's no good, no bad, right? You can't say either or. It's just the normal ways that they have practiced, and it became a part of their culture for them, to those people. Now, let's talk about, or respecting elderly, or living with your extended family members, right? Whether only nuclear parent, like family, husband and wife with kids under 18, or extended family members. There is no good or bad for any of them. It's just the way people live. They've been used to it. It became normal part of their lifestyle. Now, let's talk about these factors. Political philosophy and economic philosophy, I think we talked in this class that after a while, this political system and economic system becomes part of your culture. If you think about it, if you put a 60 plus years old person from former Soviet Union here with a 60 plus years old from the United States here, probably their purchasing behavior or their views are very, very different, right? And it's not because of anything else other than one lived under, especially at that time, under golden years of United States capitalism, and one lived at that time the worst years of Soviet Union, right? For example, spending, they're very conservative in spending, right? If you've been born and raised in communism society, your spending is very conservative. You think about the future, you want to save it. But in the United States, especially those years, right now we start thinking about savings, right? But at that time, well, government will offer, first of all, unemployment was it was not a big problem, right? Unemployment was good. And at least in 60s and 70s, for a white man, unemployment was very, very good. And the reason I mention white man is because it was a report lately that said, which we're going to talk about mobility, which is social structure. It said mobility in the United States has actually decreased. Mobility is one part of the culture. Culture is either mobile or it's not. For example, if you're born poor, you're going to die poor. If you're born rich, you're going to die rich. That's basically, there's no mobility, right? Philippines, India, those are cultures that it's like that. Some African countries, those are cultures that are like that. United States is not like that. Like, it doesn't matter. You can go to school if you work hard and all that, and you'll get somewhere else. Now, a report just very recently said that mobility has actually decreased in the United States compared to 60s, as a matter of fact. If I had known the author, I would ask, you have to be clear for what part of society, because I don't think mobility has decreased for black people and for other minorities, immigrants or women and other minorities. I just don't think so. I don't think in 1960s Barack Obama could be president. But that's what, but the report doesn't say that, who were basically sample size. It just says the report the mobility has decreased. I am assuming the mobility probably only for one group of people, which is like white male, probably has decreased. I can't find any other group that their mobility has decreased since 1960s. If you know of anyone, let me know, because I would like to know. But I believe myself that mobility has, in general, if you consider all minorities, probably it has increased. So basically, we're talking about political system and economic system. Again, communism and capitalism, how it impacts your purchasing behavior, right? And your savings and purchasing. Education, a very good example that becomes part of your culture is Korean culture. Korean culture, after World War II, 1945, when North Korea was actually under influence of Soviet Union and South Korea was under influence of United States, United States decided to invest a lot in South Korean economy. One part of it was to invest in South Korean economy for education. So, and I read the old newspaper from after World War II that says, we trust in South Korean government that our investment will have a high return. So that's how they invest in South Korea. major part of it, South Korean government decided to put forth education. Right now, it became part of their culture. If you look into it, some cultures' education is extremely important for them. Some cultures' education is not that important, right? You probably have seen here in Southern California, we're so from different cultures that you can notice like the differences. One culture that is extremely important to them is South Korean culture. South Korean culture, right now in South Korea, extracurricular activities after 2 p.m. the kids come from school, it's part of their culture. You have to. It's like, it's not mandatory, but it became a part of daily life that kids have to go to extracurricular activities. Anything. From piano to extra math homework, workshops or anything possible, they have to go till 7 o'clock or around 7 o'clock, and then they'll come home and start doing their homework. So, and I have talked to many South Koreans, that's what they say. And if you look here even in the United States, we have a lot of South Korean huge South Korean community in this area. They're still here, they're all like that too. They excel in education, right? So that became part of their culture just because in 1945, after that, government of South Korea started promoting and like marketing for education. All these robotics, competitions that we see right now, it started in South Korea actually in early 1980s, robotic competitions, because of all the budgets that government put for robotics and everything, so it advanced. Now, basically, whatever is government plans to do after decades or after one generation, it becomes part of your culture. So you see here communism or way of spending, or here education. Now, language. Language also is a very important part of your culture. We have two types of language, spoken and unspoken. Now, the widely common, most common spoken language is English, right? However, the highest number of people around the world speak Mandarin, Chinese, because of the number of population. Right now, can you guys guess what are the first five important languages around the world? English, English, Chinese, the third one? French.
Russian.
Well, what did you say? Islam is not language. What do you mean Arabic?
Arabic.
Yeah, Arabic.
Sorry.
Exactly. No, the Arabic. That's correct. That's why I said what did you say, because it was Arabic. I knew what you mean.
Sorry.
You were correct. So he's correct. The fourth one is actually Arabic. It's French, and then Arabic, and then Spanish.
Wait, what's the second one?
Chinese. That's basically the language. Now, that's the spoken language. Unspoken language are the cues or gestures that you have, right? Many cultures, like my own culture, Brazilian culture, Italian culture, we use hand a lot. Hand gestures or face or facial, like everything, all the time we do that. In Asian culture, actually, it is very rude to talk with hands, especially with your elderly, or to look straight into your eyes. In American culture, they say, look in the eyes when you're talking. In Asian culture, it's very rude to look straight into your eyes, to the other person's eyes. You have to basically look down. So especially if the person is elderly or superior. Yeah.
Do they both look down, or is it
No.
just one look?
No, as I said, especially if the person is the elderly or the superior. Yeah.
So there's two
you'll-
people,
they'll look
how do you know who you're talking to?
You do what? I'm sorry?
How do you know who you're talking to? There's like two people and one walks away and then you're just like fixing
No,
it.
the person is talking to you. You don't look down on their into their eyes, because they're either your superiors or older than you. So these are basically important cues that you have to know about when you go to the other culture. Like for us, it's very polite to look into eyes. The other ones are not. The other thing is that show off emotions, right? Probably you have seen some cultures show off emotions. They show emotions. Some cultures do not. Cultures that do show emotions, Latin American cultures, Japanese show emotions.
Have you seen the animes?
Absolutely not.
It's like
They're the
most
least
emotional.
show of emotions.
They're not the greatest.
So, Latin Americans, South Europe, like Italy, Spain, Greece, Turkey, Middle East, and Africans. So, in the African continent. So those are countries that do show emotions. Like when they're happy, they laugh, or even their weddings. You see there's a lot of basically excitement going on. And then at funeral, you see actually a lot of crying, right? Versus many other cultures, you don't hear anything at the funeral time. You don't hear anything in the wedding time, right?
I know that's the saddest thing. You can't show no emotion.
Well, let me tell you this. I had a student, international student from Vietnam. And I asked her, when I covered this chapter, she told me, when I say international students, because I want to emphasize that it's not from here, because when they're here, the culture is very overlapping. It's like, it's confusing, right? But when it's international students, they are born and raised in that country, so they know the culture much better than I do about their culture. So she told me, when I covered this one, she says, Professor, I had an experience, and after that, I made sure I don't laugh anymore. She says, I was 7 years old. When I was coming home with my friend, I started laughing. My dad saw me on the street, and he basically taught me a lesson that after that, I will never laugh on the street. So she was a little kid, she was laughing loud. So what she said basically, she says, in our culture, in her culture, show of emotions it's a weakness because people can't actually take advantage of you. If you're too happy on the street, people can actually immediately take advantage of you. If you cry, you're showing emotions again. People know you're weak. They're going to take advantage from you. So because of that, you never show any emotions. So therefore, you don't agree with that, or you say why? Yeah, well, I guess that's how it is. And I've confirmed it with other Asians, Southeast Asians. That's how it works too for them. Japanese, definitely. Koreans, definitely. So many cultures in Asia actually show the least emotion, basically. Whether funeral or weddings, for example. Now, social structure of countries, basically. Structure, we're talking about like social status, the caste system societies. It started from Great Britain and spread all around the world before, at the time of colony. So basically, as I said, in those systems, mobility is almost zero when the gap is huge. So when you're born in certain level, status of society, if you're born rich, you die rich. If you're born poor, you die poor. Now, let me tell you this. The gap is huge when, in a country, a poor person accepts and expects to be treated differently. If you accept as a poor person and you expect to be treated differently, that means the gap is huge in that society. So in United States, we might have gap, but none of us accept or expect to be treated differently if we're poor, right? Well, we might be treated poorly by other people, but we make sure we go to court. We go to take lawsuit. We do something, right? We don't accept it. We don't let it go. I mean, we might lose, but we do something. But when in society, if they're like, okay, I know I'm poor, so they have the right to do anything to me. So that's that. That means the gap is huge. Which very top huge gaps are, we're gonna look at the chart. Like for example, India, Russia, Philippines, those countries have huge gap between poor and rich. And if it happens, like if it's like poor are mistreated in society, they're not gonna complain. They just let it go. And religion, the most important source of conflict around the world, right? So religion, people are extremely sensitive about their religion, and it does influence their culture and behavior. For example, what days of the week the businesses are closed, praying 5 times a day, going to church on Sundays, basically, and unfortunately, a lot of people believe like my religion is better than your religion, or whatever they come with, philosophies in between, and the source of conflict starts, unfortunately. But your religion does actually impact everything, from your eating habits, to dressing habits, to everything else in your life, daily life, your religion actually does have an influence, and it's very sensitive area for people. Usually, the sensitive areas are religion and politics. If you want to just avoid any conflicts, never talk about religions or politics, right? Yes.
Yeah, I had a friend, she's Latin American, and she's very religious, she's Christian. Catholic, and she wears skirts every day to work. So one day I just asked her, like, why do you wear skirts every day? Long skirts though. Every day, even if it's raining, hailing, anything, she wears skirts. She's like, this is part of our religious belief. It's like everybody didn't buy by it, but we buy by it. The purity, the long hair, the not cutting anything, that's pure. So I'm like, oh, okay, you taught me something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we talked about Sikhism. Remember, we talked about Hindu Sikhism. That's how it works for them too. So they don't cut hairs and all that. They dress differently. They're male because it's purity to it. Exactly. Now, when I went to China first time, 2005, the two things they told me, first thing was that never talk about religion and politics in this country. Nobody likes it. So especially it was like very early stages of open economy. The second time when I went there, it was like 2 years ago, and they said, well, people are somewhat open to talk about religions, but still not politics. Because religions, they started practicing Confucianism, which is not a religion, but it's just a practice, probably. So they were kind of open to talk about it, but still not politics. I did actually try to talk to my students about religions and politics, but they refrained. Now, when I said China, let me give you a very good example of culture. In China, my colleagues told me before that you were assigned actually a person that does everything for you. So they greet you at the airport, and then you don't basically go down to eat breakfast. They will bring you whatever the breakfast to your door, and then every time you want to go to class, they will come to your door, knock on your door, they'll take you to class. Well, the class is on the campus, we're on dormitory. So they believe that it's probably because of they don't want you to do anything that you get in trouble, or you get somewhere that if you're nosy, you get somewhere that it causes trouble or anything, right? So when I asked them later, some of my Chinese students said, well, we want to make sure that nothing happens to you first, and then also it's just polite, because you are like a professor, you're a scholar coming from somewhere else to teaching us. We think it's just polite to, for example, carry your bag or do stuff for you. We don't like to let it just go like, oh, you're on your own on campus. So it's just two different views. We thought that, oh, it's political reason behind it. They're like, no, we do that for everyone. We think it's polite. So even all those little attitudes are all based on their culture. Now, we're going to talk, the most important part of this basically chapter is the part of it's Hofstede's chart, which I'm going to go to it, but let me cover this one because this is interesting. You guys might not know. Doing business in Islam is very different, Islamic banks, because interest rate is illegal. So they do other way of businesses, banking system. For example, there are two types of making money for the bank, basically, which is mudaraba and murabaha. Mudaraba is basically, if you're a small business, you want to you want to borrow money from the bank, ask for loan. What the bank does, they become partly owner. They actually have some shares, so they can put money in the business, right? That's one part of it, which is profit sharing. Now I'm partly owner, so I can share the profit too. Murabaha which is most widely used, is markup of the price. For example, if I'm a company, I want money for some funds for my equipment. I'll actually let bank know who is the supplier. The bank will buy the supply and then sell it to me with 10% markup for the period of time paying. So I'll pay them in 6 months, but they already included the interest into the total amount because they already marked up. So that's how it works. You got it, or you're confused?
Like railway.
Yeah, you're right. So this is basically Islamic banking. Now, Islam promotes modesty. Hinduism and Buddhism, they're kind of like each other. They promote not only modesty, but also spiritual values. Versus Christianity, I'm not sure if Christianity really promoted like materialistic values, but in your book it says 1904, just very recently, Max Weber suggested that it was the Protestant work ethic to focus on work, hard work, and wealth creation. Basically, that's why it says like capitalism, that's how it started, because Christianity started with working hard and wealth creation. Now, and then it says Islam is based on modesty, and Buddhism and Hinduism are based on spirituality, not materialistic values so much. And Confucianism, again, it was in China, it's not a religion, now it's practiced back again by some Chinese. Oh, let me talk about personal space. You will see Hofstede's chart. We're going to talk about Hofstede's chart right now. Hofstede basically is a organizational psychologist. In 1968, he wanted to start his doctorate dissertation, so he asked IBM to allow him to travel to IBM subsidiaries around the world so he can basically observe employees' behaviors in different countries to write his dissertation, Cultural Dimension. It's called Hofstede's Cultural Dimensions. We're going to talk about it. It has, at that time he created 5 different dimensions, which has been widely used among scholars, universities, everyone, right? Later on, just 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, he added one more item to it, one more dimension to it, which made it 6. However, other organizations they used the first 5 dimensions and added more to it, such as personal space and time orientation. If you look into his original, which we're going to look, it doesn't have space orientation or time orientation. But later on, other organizations added to it. They elaborated his original ones. Space orientation, for example, is that each culture has its own personal space. Some cultures, they talk literally into your face. Some other cultures, you have to give them personal space. In the United States, it's just like arm length, right? Which is normal. If you go to other countries and they come, for example, to your cubicle or they come to your office and they come really close to your face and talk to you, you shouldn't be offended or you shouldn't be going away from them because it's very normal. They didn't mean anything. They're just talking to you.